Did you turn your cell phone off? I did. Wasn't that good of me? Couple of little announcements. In the series, we also have Annabelle Seldorf on the 12th of April. You know, she's president of the Architectural League, but she's also done that lovely Sunset Park Memorial Recycling Center in Brooklyn. On the 24th of May, we have Scott Wilson, industrial designer and amazing entrepreneur, who's been so successful with the iPod Touch, iPod that looks like becomes a watch when you put it around your wrist. On the 14th of June, we have Walter Hood. So I hope we'll see you for all of those. At the Cooper-Hewitt, we're trying to make sure that everybody goes online. So you see these cards that were on the table when you came in. I hope you've clicked onto there, and on the iPads that are out there have entered your email address so we can send you stuff. Because you know, the strange thing is we're only allowed to send you stuff if you ask for it. That's one of these strange things about modern ethics. There's a little talk that the IDSA is putting on. We also see a flyer on that. That's on April 13th, 14th down in Philly. I happen to be keynoting, so it's absolutely unforgivable of me to mention it. But anyway, most important tonight, of course, is that Emily Oberman is with us, and I'm so excited to have her talking. And amazing thing is, you know, she only started at Pentagram on Monday. So she's like a newborn babe. So Emily, please.
Hi. The truth of the matter, it's not that I started on Monday, it's that I'm going to start on Monday. So I haven't actually even started, so there's still time, if this doesn't go well, for them to change their mind. Anyway, because of that, I thought that this talk would give me a nice moment to sort of think about what I've done as a designer and where I've been and where I've come from. And one of the things that I realized in thinking about that is that I have always found myself in extremely collaborative environments. And I guess that's what I like. And I wanted to talk about work that I've done, and when I say I've done, I really should say we've done, in terms of the collaboration. So that's why I titled this Me and You and Everyone I Know. Or, change is good, because I'm at a moment of extreme change in my life. And for instance, it's been 17 years since I was on stage by myself, really, because I've had a partner for 17 years in my design studio, and so this is kind of a scary new beginning in that way as well. But change is good. Or we thought it would be fun, which is something that I always think, and certainly Bonnie and I always thought at the beginning of any project we always take on, we always think, this is going to be fun, and then sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. More often than not, it's not. Anyway, so in terms of collaboration, I really like when my life and my work is seamless. And I think that you'll see, oh, first of all, also hi, and I'm Emily Oberman. You'll see that this started the very second I was born. These are my parents. This is them at a judo class before I was born. And my parents are artists and designers. My father's a graphic designer. My mother is a painter and a sculptor and an illustrator. And it's funny, Michael Bierut always talks about how the thing he wants most, that most graphic designers want most, is to be able to explain to their parents what they do. I have completely the opposite relationship. My parents know exactly what I do and understand it well enough that they can criticize in a very specific, very pointed way. Anyway, my career started very, very young. When I was little, my parents made children's books. My father would design them and my mother would illustrate them, and sometimes vice versa. And when they got these jobs, they would in turn hire me to illustrate along with them. And so here you can see from a page of a book that they did, which was The ABC of Living Things. This is the lovely spread of A and B. And right here, you see my contribution to the alphabet. And they said, if you're an illustrator, you get paid for what you do. And they paid me. And they also told me that I couldn't get paid till they got paid, till the check came. And so I would literally, like, and I think I got 25 cents a drawing or 50 cents a drawing, and I would literally be like, did the check come? And my parents were like, not yet. And so my work ethic and my inability to tell the difference between work and life began then. The other cool thing about my parents, I'm just going to say as an aside, is they designed the national flag of Anguilla, which is a small island in the Caribbean, which was a member of the British colonies, and they decided to secede. And when I was small, we spent a lot of time in Anguilla, and we knew some people in government, and my parents, I believe, were the only designers that they knew. So the search wasn't vast, but they were at the top of a very short list. And so my parents designed this flag, and so you can find my parents in flag books. Anguilla, of course, because of how Anguilla it is, after they won their independence in a bloodless war, changed their mind and went back and became a British colony again. But the flag is still in use today as part of the British colony flag, and also for tourists. The next big collaboration of my life was I spent 6 years at a design studio called M & Company working for a man named Tibor Kalman. And Tibor was, for those of you who don't know him, or for those of you who do, a brilliant, smart, funny, crazy man who made everyone around him work really hard and be better for how hard they worked. And the other funny thing about Tibor is that he's a graphic designer, and he was married to this wonderful woman named Myra Kalman, who is a children's book illustrator. So I managed to sort of replicate my home life, my family, at M & Company with a graphic designer and an illustrator. And while I was at M & Company, I collaborated with Myra on 5 of her children's books, which are lovely, and she's moved on to even bigger and better things now, and they're terrific. Whoops. Hold on. The next thing that I'm going to show you is a piece that I did at M & Company, and I would say it's one of my strongest, one of the strongest turning points in my career was working on this music video with Tibor for Talking Heads. And I'm going to show it now. It's over 20 years old. It looks incredibly dated, and I love it. It was done at a time when typography was not particularly used in music videos or in TV shows or in commercials, and this was sort of a little bit of a game changer for the way type was used after we did it. And it was an unbelievable experience. Scott Stoll, who was also here, worked on it as well at the time. He was an intern, and we spent weeks and weeks and weeks doing something that now would probably take a week, would you say, to do it? And I'm going to show the whole thing, and I'll talk through it a little bit as it goes. Typography is set by hand, kerned by hand, positioned on photographs that we took of David Byrne and Christy McNichol, that we spaced around them and moved under a camera to shoot. And when we would ask for any of these pieces of animation to be done, like this thing, that curve of type, and this typography that's coming through now, when we asked the animator to do this, he was French, and he said, "Mon Dieu, come back tomorrow. It can't be done," because we wanted things to move at different times. These were Harper's Facts that we were all very into, especially Tibor was very into Harper's Index at the time, and so we used these little moments to point up facts of less than positive things that were happening in the world at the time, because the song, even though it's very peppy and happy, is actually has a sort of dystopic message. It's actually the opposite. This also, the type was set against a photograph of David Byrne, animated, transferred to film, reshot, and projected. Working with Tibor on stuff like this, we would sit for hours and hours and talk about all different ways that the type could move and what it meant and what the personality was and what happened. And it was this incredible learning experience for all of us, I would say, who worked at M & Company. Being able to spend that kind of time thinking about what the right idea for something is. And I think that learning that was a very important part of who everyone at M & Company evolved into as designers.
Cherry pies, candy bars, and chocolate chip cookies. You got it, we used to microwave. You got it, this was a discount store, now it's turned into a cornfield. You got it, don't leave me stranded here. I can't get used to this lifestyle.
Colors Magazine was something else that we did at M & Company, and this was a brainchild of Oliviero Toscani, and he came to Tibor and wanted M & Company to design it, and Tibor said he wanted to edit it. And that was also another way of thinking that I learned, where you could do more than just design. You could be part of the voice of what you were doing. And so Tibor and Toscani created this magazine, and I worked on the first issue with them, and I'm just going to show you a couple of spreads from the magazine. It was a magazine about what was going on in the world. And someone said to me the other day that this first spread, which was 1 minute all around the world, all these people in every different time zone telling you exactly what they were doing, was basically Twitter in 1993. And then this is just what people all around the world, different things people eat, and different things that people play with. And then also at M & Company, there were M & Company designed a lot of watches. And the back of every watch said, "Waste not a moment." And I think that that is a really terrific way of thinking that I learned from M & Company. I don't always adhere to it, but it's a terrific goal to strive for. In terms of collaboration, I even took that all the way into my home life. I married a graphic designer named Paul Sayer, and it's wonderful to have someone, first of all, whose work blows me away every single day around the house, but also someone who at 4 o'clock in the morning you can literally talk about whatever project you were thinking, I don't know about that type, it doesn't feel right, I don't know, the idea, the timing isn't quite right. I mean, literally we have these talks at 4 o'clock in the morning. We'll get out of bed, we'll open up our computers, we'll talk about work, and it's just, it feels right to me. It feels right. It's like the way life should be. Anyway, here's a little example of something that he's been working on recently, and a little example into why our home life is also a little insane, because he just did a album cover for They Might Be Giants called Join Us with a monster truck hearse on it. And he spent 3 months, 4 months building a life-size monster truck hearse out of cardboard and then destroying it. And they printed all these glorious posters for it, and those posters get used like this. And the other great thing about Paul is he hires my mother. My mother did that illustration for the cover of his book, his Chuck Klosterman book, Eating the Dinosaur. She's very talented. If anyone needs an illustrator, she's available. The next great partnership of my life was Number 17. We had Number 17 for just over 17 years, and my partner was Bonnie Siegler, and I was fortunate enough to have someone who was smart and funny and driven and just as into work and just as into silliness as I was. And this is what we use as our photograph of us. We always like to say that we've known each other forever. Truthfully, that is me and isn't her, but we always said it might as well be. Looks just like her, why not? And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Bonnie in a bit, but then my new partners are many. And I am starting at Pentagram on Monday, and what I like about that is the idea of this moment in my life being able to change and evolve in a way that allows me to have this many people to talk to about work and to collaborate with and to sort of expand the possibilities of what work can be. And all of them are truly inspirational people, and I've been in the office for a couple of months already, and it's just fantastic. It's interesting, it's exciting, it's a place where the work is what's important, no matter how small or how big the project. And that's really refreshing, and I'm very excited to be becoming part of that. But now I'm going to talk about some work that we've done at Number 17, or that I've done, mostly we, and just go through it very quickly. We like to do a lot of logos. This was Orbit's, the travel website. Trio, now defunct cultural institution website TV channel. Housing Works bookstore and cafe, part of the Housing Works organization for AIDS. And then there's this logo, which I wanted to talk about a little bit more, which was, we were asked by we thought it would be fun to do the logo for Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, and this one was, but they asked us to design their logo, and we said yes, and they then decided that they would open the logo presentation up for online voting. So we went and we presented logos to Jimmy in his office, and we were filmed showing the logos. And what's interesting about this is how passionate people are about design, because this particular web video, he did these web videos right before the show aired. Every day there was a different web video, and people watched them or didn't watch them. This particular web video got more comments and greater response than any other one. And so here are the logos that we presented. This was one. We showed it as it would be on a bumper in and out of the show. 1, 2, 3. And we showed them to him on mugs, which he was very confused. Why on mugs? We were like, because it's going to be on a mug on your desk every night for the rest of the life of this show. It should look good on a mug. He was a terrific client, very smart and very funny. And then it got opened up to the audience. And this was our favorite response. Number 1 is great. I love it. I like the font in number 2, but I think the words are too big. Maybe make them a little smaller or merge 1 and 2. Use the size and the layout of 1, but the font of 2. I don't like number 3. At least one word needs to be in a different color. They are way too big, but I do like how it shows the city. Everyone thought that was part of the logo. So I say merge 3, take number 1's layout with number 2's font, move the words towards the middle, like number 3, love the videos, can't wait for the show. Oh, and number 3 definitely looks best on the mug. In the end, this is the logo that they chose, and there it is on a mug. Air America was another project that we thought would be fun. It was a radio station for the left. It was like a punditry, but for the left, not the right. And so we decided to make the logo the country because the idea was that the right isn't the only one who owns the country. The left owns it too. So we were sort of taking back the idea of the country. And then we used the country itself to, at the time, this was 2004, I believe. At the time, we used the country to obliterate both the pundits and the politicians, sort of pinpointing them right where he doesn't read. So good he needs a radio station, fighting the axis of Enron, the war on error, and this one, which is my favorite, leaking the truth 24 hours a day. And here it was in Grand Central Station. Magazines are a love. Also, we worked with Glenn O'Brien on writing those. I've been meaning to say the names of all the people who worked on these because we don't do them alone. We did a launch campaign for Jane Magazine, which was a magazine. They came to us and they said, we don't know what it's going to be about. We don't want to say anything about the editor. We don't want to say anything about the content. And we want to sell all the advertising before the first issue comes out. And it's called Jane. But we can't say anything more than that. So we sort of figured, oh, well, that's dumbass enough. So we'll just introduce everyone to Jane. And Kira Alexandra worked on this campaign with us, and she is here tonight. And so the launch campaign was the idea of Jane, this giant posters that said, hello, my name is Jane, on them all around the city. And then as we spun it out, we started to call other things Jane. Hello, I can't even read, hello, my favorite color is Jane, my invisible friend is Jane, my best friend is Jane. And every ad, these were posters that went up all around the city, every ad ended with my magazine is Jane. And through that, by making them bigger and kookier and crazier, hola, me amo Jane, oh, hello, me Tarzan, you Jane, my PIN number is Jane, my other car is a Jane, my web browser is Jane, all of that stuff. Let us create a personality for the magazine through the design and through the way we talked about the magazine without actually saying anything about the magazine, and we did it. They sold all the advertising. Another magazine that we worked on was Lucky, which we worked on for a year, coming up with the concept, the content of what Lucky would be. While we were doing it, we said, it's a magazine about shopping, and everyone said, every magazine is about shopping. And we said, but this is a magazine where if your hobby is shopping, this is like yachting or fishing, but for shopping. And so we came up with this idea. The whole thing was meant to be very clickable. So we came up with this idea of a way to shop the magazine, these stickers that said, yes, maybe, that you could go and stick throughout the magazine. And at first they were very afraid that advertisers wouldn't like that, but in the end the advertisers liked it so much they bought ad space under the stickers. And then the rest of the magazine was, again, it was meant to be kind of very straightforward. Some things would cost a lot of money, some things would be very cheap. And it was one of the most successful launches in Condé Nast history. It was even told you how to buy flowers. And then the next one is Colors, which after having worked on it with Tibor, those many years ago, Luciano Benetton decided to bring the magazine back to the United States. It had been being made in Italy, and he asked Kurt Anderson to helm it. And Kurt came to us as creative directors to work on it with him. So it was very nice to go back into Colors so many years later, and I got a chance to redraw the logo. The issues were still themed as Colors was. This one was about fans. This was the TOC. We tried to do something different with the TOC every time, so you got a little slice of the photograph on the TOC for every article. This is when good fans go bad. This is crazy things people collect. Tiny Tim's tie, Jasper John's chair. This was an issue about drugs. This is an image from that where every single thing in that illustration gets you high, including the snake and the frog. This is a druggy road trip. This is a piece about borders. This is something else that was Wade Convey was the designer who worked with us on that. This is the Mercer Hotel. It's really nice to do hotel work because you get to sort of take care of someone's entire experience. You get to think about what that person will do and how they will react to something every second of their stay in the hotel. And this logo represented the idea that the hotel was this beautiful, invisible butler, which is why it lived in parentheses. And then these are just some of the things that we designed for it. We also did the Maritime Hotel, which was a great project because they wanted it to look like someone had found all the stuff in the basement of the hotel, which was built in 1968. So we did that. We got to make a carpet out of our logo. Andy Capelli worked on that project. Here are the matches and the matches from the Sunset Beach. And the reason that I'm showing those is because sometimes it's just the little things that matter. It's the little details. It's that you open the Sunset Beach matches and there's a sunset on the inside. That you open the Maritime matches and it's silver so that when you strike the match, it pops. Akira Alexandra again on the Sunset Beach. Spice Market, collaboration with Jean-Georges, the restaurateur, and here we got to do something all based on the idea of Malaysian spice. They actually bought and brought an entire temple over and rebuilt it inside the restaurant in the meatpacking district. And so we took all the design from that and based everything on these intricate carvings that existed on the temple. And also with the matches, we added something to it so that they weren't just matches. It was called Spice Market, so we added incense. So the matches were half matches and half incense. So they were basically incense holders. And you got to take a little bit of the spice of Spice Market home with you while when you left. And Jean-Georges loved that because he got to pick the scent. Weird information. This is another project that is great because the idea that you have the chance and the ability to spend time thinking about something and to work with someone. Stephen Dubner is one of the Freakonomics guys, and we worked with him for a year coming up with what the content of this book should be. This is the deluxe illustrated edition of Super Freakonomics. And the idea is that it's jam-packed with all this extra information. And what we would do was we would spend time with each chapter and come up with ideas for what other information would be great to know based on what the content of that chapter was. And the best idea won. Whoever came up with the best little detail to expand on trumped anyone else. There was no ego involved. It was all about the idea. And so this is the end page, which I really love, which is we use these because the book was filled with there were 500 footnotes in this book. So instead of doing footnotes, and because it was illustrated, what we did was, here's the table of contents, which is meant to be like a little chart and a little guide. You could see where you are in the book anywhere. It's like the little time thing on the bottom of a QuickTime movie, but for a book. And I'll show you what we... And then the book had all these little details. Like the first chapter is about drunk walking. And that actually, statistically, drunk walking is more dangerous than drunk driving. Because people... I'm not going to go into it. Anyway, trust me. Trust me on this. And so this was the idea. We just took the text. Oh, something is wrong there. Well, you can't see it. Something is wrong there. The text gets blurrier and wobblier as you read it, so it's supposed to simulate being drunk. You can see it a little bit on the side of this one. And then this is how drunk you are based on how many beers you have and where you go. But the thing that I wanted to show you was footnotes. There were so many footnotes in this book, we didn't want to say 324, and then you'd have to go find 324. So what we did was, since everything was illustrated, we created a teeny tiny little illustration of what that image was. And you learned by page 2, I would say, how this worked. And you could always find the piece that went with your little illustration. And so the end pages are made up out of all the footnotes. There was a chart on spousal abuse, a chapter on spousal abuse, and how it related directly to, in some cases, no, that's not right. It was about India, and it was, oh God, oh, never mind. This is a chart of, this is a chart of penis size by country. Bill, you can ask me about this later, and I'll have found the words for it by the time we get there. What it was I know what it was. It was about abortion. Sorry, and I'll get there. It was about abortion, and in India, apparently, there are more abortions or unwanted pregnancies, and that is because, according to this chart, which was made by the French, you can tell by where they fall in the penis sizes in Egypt were so small that condoms didn't fit properly. Sorry. This is a chart that we did, a decision tree of how someone becomes a prize-winning economist. This is the world's dirtiest joke, actually told and then covered up. And also, this was a chapter about prostitution, and we got to do little things like, this is a list of different acts of sex, and for other, we just nose and glasses. This is a chart based on people's fear of different fears, like you are far more likely to die of a terrorist attack than a shark attack, but people are more afraid of shark attacks than terrorist attacks, and you're actually more likely to die of falling in your bathtub than either of those, but still there's no falling in your bathtub week on the Animal Planet. This is a chart of statistics between actual emergency rooms and TV emergency rooms, and you'll notice you're far more likely to die in the TV emergency room than in an actual emergency room. So if you have to go to the emergency room, don't do it on TV. And this is a page of home remedies. And then this is the last chart I have, and it's my favorite. It is the mortality rate of places with helmet laws and without helmet laws. And the places without helmet laws, obviously the mortality rate is much higher, and as you can tell by that guy just careening off the top of the top one. TV. Love TV. Watch a lot of TV. And one of my favorite things about TV is Saturday Night Live. For better or for worse, I've loved that show my entire life, and we have worked on the titles for Saturday Night Live for almost 17 years, off and on. And this is another incredibly collaborative relationship because we've been working with these same people, basically doing the same thing every year for almost 17 years. Every year it's going to be the city, and every year it's going to be the cast, and every year it's going to be nighttime, and it's got to be cool, and every year it's got to be different. The first thing we did was, one of the first things we did was the logo. And we realized that everyone just says Saturday Night Live, so we took the word spacing out of that. And then here is a little historical montage of some opens that we've done over the years. Oh, that's the logo. I see, it's confusing to me. Here's the montage. Can you turn it up a little?
It's Saturday Night Live with Tim Brewer. It's Saturday Night Live with Jim Brewer, Will Ferrell, it's Saturday Night Live with Rachel Grant, Jimmy Fallon, Tina Fey.
The next thing I'm going to show is we also did the identity for Lorne Michaels' production company, which was called SNL Studios, and the idea behind this one was it's a late night cab ride in the rain, and you're a little drunk. After 12 years with that logo, we had to redesign it. They decided it was time for change. So, and change is good. So the first one was onomatopoeic in that it was Saturday Night Live. This one is Saturday Night Live. So again, we tried to keep the onomatopoeic quality of the of the logo. And at the same time, we were asked to do the opening sequence and the logo for Tina Fey's show, 30 Rock. And so just as we were retiring our original Saturday Night logo, we decided we would just move it over to 30 Rock, since 30 Rock was basically about Saturday Night Live anyway. So even though it went away, it didn't really. So it still lives. And then I just wanted to show the most recent Saturday Night Live open because it's on now and I really like it.
It's Saturday Night Live with Fred Armisen, Will Forte, Bill Hader, Seth Meyers.
And the last thing I'm going to show is it's just another one of the perks of working with Saturday Night Live is that we occasionally get to do these parody commercials. And here's one.
Love hurts, love scars, love wounds, and mars any heart. Take a lot of pain,
Cookie dough sport. Cookie dough right when you need it most. So get on your feet, get in the game, and get the dough. Cookie dough sport. Cookie dough sport. Be the dough.
And just as I said, everything is a collaboration, everything that we've done. It's funny, I realize that I still speak about number 17 in the present, I still speak about M & Company in the present. It's all part, it doesn't ever go away. It doesn't change, it doesn't stop. Even though things do change and things do evolve and you find yourself with a new group of people and it's exciting, and I already say we about Pentagram, but it's always we. And these are the people, many of the people who worked on a lot of these projects with us, for those whose name I forgot to say out loud. That's it for now.
Mon Dieu, Emily, that was marvelous.
So,
Merci.
I loved that frozen Twitter that you had in 1993. I mean, I know that you studied film before you became a graphic designer, really.
Yes.
So you were very fluent in cross-media there between more traditional film and graphics. What do you feel about designing for the new media, things like Twitter?
I actually love it. And one of the sad things was there are a couple of projects that we're working on right now that are really terrific, that sort of bridge. There are a couple of websites that we're working on right now that I actually can't show because they haven't launched yet. But the idea of being able to use that kind of motion and that kind of sort of timing and the way things move is wonderful. And actually, I think it's funny because everyone was afraid that all of this new media would mean the death of design in some way, and people were worried. But I actually think it adds a whole new life and a whole new way of things working, especially now with the tablet, where we can have basically still things come to life. And people are so used to having things move in front of them that it's actually a terrific opportunity. We're at this moment where we're making it up as we go along, and new things are possible today that weren't possible 3 months ago. And I think it's really exciting, and I feel like it's a chance to get sort of back into the kind of motion work that we were doing at the in 1988, I think, when the Talking Heads video was done. We didn't know what we were doing.
It's so great to see that, by the way.
Oh, thank you. We didn't know what we were doing at the time. And I feel a little bit that way about web stuff now. Like, you're not sure what is it going to look like on this browser and what's it going to look like on that browser. Oh, God, the font isn't loading.
Have you done a lot with little screens, like telephone-sized screens?
Oh, you mean like apps and
Yeah.
stuff? We're just starting on that.
Do you feel restrained by that, or is that another opportunity?
It's a whole different kind of way of thinking again. Like, the websites that I'm working on right now, I am working on in a way that I hope that they will translate well to a tablet and a phone without having to be redesigned for that, so that they work in those media. But some things can't. I mean, you can do this so much, but the idea of designing, thinking again for a small screen is interesting to me and exciting in a way. Although I'm not one of those people, I don't like to watch movies on my phone. Like, I do feel like I lose that experience. I still like my movies to be big, and I know a lot of the kids today are perfectly comfortable watching movies like that, and I'm not ready for that yet, but I am ready for an experience. I use my phone all the time. I'm constantly on it, and so the idea of thinking in a way that makes that comfortable and easy and fun and pleasurable. And again, for me, it's also always about thinking about who the end user is, and making a connection with that person, not with the client, not with my client, but with my client's client, so that I know that when someone is using a website that I've worked on, or watching a TV show that I've worked on, or a hotel, being in a hotel room, that they know that I knew that they would be sitting in this certain way when they held it like this, or when they read something, is part of the experience that goes into thinking about the design.
And have you come across those challenges where you start with something big and then you have to scale it for smaller stuff? I mean, a lot of people prefer the other way around, where they start with the smallest scale of app and then they can blow it up more easily. But when you have to scale down, is that a nasty challenge?
I think it's a tricky thing both ways, because I think when you start with something small and you scale it up, sometimes you end up with something kind of like big and horsey, or like, those phones with the big buttons for people who don't see so well. Like, you sort of get into that. Me. You get into that area, but it is difficult once you get used, when, I get so happy with something and then I look at it on the phone and I think, crap, it's too small, it doesn't quite work, I have to rethink that a little bit. And we're just sort of starting to work. It is more for me that the big to the small than the small to the big.
So it's designing for the medium, whatever it is, as a unique context and opportunity. Well, let me go back a little bit in time. We're very excited at the Cooper-Hewitt that when we reopen in the spring of 2014, Myra Kalman will be doing some lovely stuff with us. I thought you might tell us a bit more about Myra and Tibor's relationship. You must know them pretty well both. And
I love them both dearly. I mean, Myra is I don't remember how it came up once. Tibor and I were talking, and I said something like, oh, that's my favorite thing about that person. And Tibor said, well, what's your favorite thing about me? And I said, Myra. and he said, me too.
Ah, sweet.
So they had a terrific relationship, I would say. She was one of the only people on the planet who could say to Tibor, you're being an asshole, stop. And he would stop. He trusted her, she trusted him. It was fun, it was crazy. She was, you know, we would work on books together and she would say, I think it needs an extra little pluky here. And somehow you got to know what a little pluky meant when Myra said that. I
hope she does some plukies for us.
Oh, she will. She's plukerific. And I think that she has evolved in a way that is really, really, I mean, obviously she's evolved in a way that's really terrific. The work that she does is, you know, she started out doing children's books, and her children's books always had an adult edge to them, but the work that she does now, even the children's book like the Lincoln book, which is so deep and so moving, and, you know, the food book and the elements of style, it's just, I love where she's gone with what she does and what she can do and the way she thinks about things. And it's crazy how beloved she is. Like, I've never read, when you read the comments on her blog on the New York Times, it was freakish that no one ever, you know, a blog, like all blogs are about, is complaining. And every blog about Myra was just like, I can't wait for your next one. I love you. You're brilliant. And it's terrific.
They say that about you too, don't they?
I don't blog.
So even going back a little further, I mean, when you decided to go to study film rather than graphics, was that because you needed to get away from the parents and that the parents...
Oh, no, I didn't study film instead of graphics. I studied film and graphics.
Okay.
I went to Cooper Union, and at Cooper Union you never have to declare a major. And so I studied graphic design and filmmaking at the same time and printmaking at the same time. Where I defied my parents was I quit art school to go to acting school. And my parents were all up in arms about that. What? You're throwing your life away? And I'm like, what's the acting, art? What's the difference here?
Well, particularly with moving image, I mean, film and enactment.
Well, and it wasn't until the Talking Heads video that I understood that all of it could come together, really. Not the acting, but I gave up on that.
But having people act in your stuff.
Yes. But the Talking Heads video was sort of the beginning of, I mean, honestly, again, we had no idea what we were doing, and David Byrne came in with this idea of a music video that had typography in it. And Tibor came out of his office and said, anybody know anything about filmmaking? And I was just like, me, I do. You know, I'd studied it in college. And he was like, all right, you. That's how I got to do the Talking Heads video with him, and it was terrific. And I suddenly started to understand that, oh, you can put all these different things together. You can make type move, and you can make people move like type, and it opened up this whole window for me. Wonderful. And for Tibor as well. He had never done anything quite like it before either, and we were all pretty excited about it when it happened.
Do you think that's a generalization about design at the moment, that all of these different disciplines are merging and are all mixed up together, and we can expect to design in any medium, whether it's moving or not moving, or film or graphics or 3D stuff or online,
Do
offline?
I think it's accurate? I do. I mean, I think I'll use my husband as an example. He is like I said, a graphic designer, and he was asked by the They Might Be Giants guys to do this album cover, and by the end he had done a music video for them. He'd never done a music video before, and he didn't mean to do it in the first place, but it sort of turned into that.
Sounds like a nice mistake, really.
A very happy accident, I would say. And I think that you are sort of expected as a professional now to be able to think in different media, which is why I'm really grateful for having had the background that I've had and all the years doing all the different kinds of work, because that idea isn't that daunting to me. Like, I think of the web in the web in terms of it's a filmic medium. And I even think about books that way. It's a passing of time. It's the way you go through something. It's time-based.
Yeah.
And so I do think that they all come together in a really nice way, and I think it's a good thing to expect everyone to do.
Tell us more about your Pentagram decision. I mean, what made you fall in love with the idea of moving to Pentagram?
Paula made me fall in love with the idea of moving to Pentagram. We had number 17 for a little over 17 years, and it was terrific. And I wouldn't change a thing. I love it. I loved it. It was terrific. But the idea of being at this point in my life and being able to start something new and do something different, and the idea of starting something new and doing something different in a place as creative as Pentagram and in a place as kind of, I want to say scary, but I don't mean scary, but like it's a pressurized situation. There's a lot of expectations. The work is good, the work is big, the work is interesting, the people are smart, the people are talented, the people there, the partners and the designers who work there, everyone is extremely driven and extremely hardworking, and it's all always for sort of the greater good. Like, it's never just about, oh, let's just get this job done. And so the idea of being able to move on to a situation where that sort of pressure and aspiration has increased is really exciting for me. Like, the idea of putting myself in a situation where I really have to bring it is very exciting.
The impression that one has of the structure is that each partner has their own practice, or at least controls their own practice. So the nature of the collaboration is only when the practices get thrown together or the opportunity to put them together. Do you think that's still true in the structure?
It's definitely true, and that's the other thing that's really nice about it, that really appealed to me about it, was I still get to be myself. Like, I still get to do the kind of work that I like, which I think is different from the work that Pentagram does now. I think I bring a different kind of voice, a different kind of work to what they have. And I think that that's one of the things that made them interested in me. But you do run your own practice. And then there are opportunities, like I'm already working on a project where one of the other partners is working on a different aspect of the project, and there's some web stuff that we're working on where I'm going to bring in a partner who's more technologically savvy than I am, and we will collaborate in that way. But the other thing is, you're working on something, and Michael Beirut walks by your desk, and you can say, what do you think of this? And he tells you, and it makes the work better. It tells you if he says, I love it, or if he says, nah, I don't know, you gotta work. It makes the work better. It makes you push yourself harder, and I know that from just being there, just sort of getting my toes wet. Now, it's really, there's something very inspiring, sounds corny, but, and when Michael Beirut looks at your thing and says, you want to make it better.
Right.
So it's the collaboration is both interdisciplinary in a more tangible way, and then just across the board in a more everyday way.
Well, we should, in a moment, open this up to the people to come and join in, make comments, questions. Please remember that we're online, we're streaming this, so people who are listening and looking from anywhere in the world will want to know who you are. So if you do come to the microphone, please say who you are before you make your comment or ask your question. In the meantime, while they're setting up the microphones, didn't I hear the rumor that you put some little people in a freezer?
I didn't put any little people, which sounds really creepy because now I have children. And when I didn't have children, it didn't sound so creepy to me, but somehow the idea that they were actual people is a little weird. They were not actual people, and I did not do it. My office manager, Nomi Joy Parker, we had bought all these little cake toppers for a photo shoot, and they were just laying around one day, and for some reason she thought they belonged in the freezer. And one day we opened the freezer and there were like 20 little people in there. Not little people, but little fake people. And they stayed there for the rest of the life of number 17 because they seemed happy, and why move them?
Does sound a bit like leprechauns, doesn't it?
Yes. The little people who live in the fridge.
By St. Patrick and all the angels, what do you put them in there for?
Any other questions about cruelty at number 17?
Well, you know, I heard an attractive story about the way you came up with the name 17. I think people might like to hear that.
Bonnie and I used to take vacations together before we had a company. And the first time we ever went anywhere, we went to Spain. I should say we tried for many years to make up some better reason to call it number 17. It's a prime number. It's not our names. It's abstract. It lets us do all different kinds of things. But anyway, we went to Spain and we went to pick up our car, and the car was in space number 17, and that meant nothing. And then we drove into Barcelona proper and checked into our hotel, and we were in room number 17, and we thought, well, that's funny. Then we went to a museum and had to check our tiny backpacks that were the fashion at the time, and we got a little plaque, and it said number 17, and we thought, this is interesting. And it just kept happening for the rest of our lives so far. And when we decided to have the company, it wasn't even because, I mean, literally we had started collecting things that we would get that had the number 17 on them, and so it became a no-brainer that the company would be called.
17 years is no accident, or?
Now we can say, oh, we called it number 17 because the 17th year would be the year we would decide to end the whole thing, and isn't that tidy? But no, it was just it kind of seemed like a good idea as it was happening.
So please, come and say something.
Anybody? Okay.
Hi, I'm Mark, a copywriter who's always wanted to be a designer, so...
It's funny, I've always wanted to be a copywriter.
How have you sort of encouraged that collaborative work that you talked about, where it's not the copywriters who give you the words and the graphic designer has the color, the creative director says, this is the strategy we're going for. How do you sort of make that all work together? Because it sounds like everybody contributes to everything so that your work all sort of comes out that way.
I mean, to me, it's always about the idea. And it's always about the best idea winning. And sometimes the best idea comes from where you expect it, and sometimes the best idea comes from where you don't expect it. And someone writing the copy might have a great idea for the visuals, and someone making the coffee might have a great idea for the visuals or for a logo or for a tagline. It's a dialogue. I think it comes from a few things. It comes from a nature that is fostered, that you can foster. Like, I think that being very open and being very interested in collaboration, it also comes from the people that you keep around you, the people that you hire, the kind of people that you like to have around, who are interested. You know, it's about hiring people who are not only focused on what they're doing, who are not only interested in making the donuts, for instance, you know, who understand that, like, oh, they're talking about something over there. I was thinking about that. I have a good idea. And having that kind of collaborative, open forum, sort of a level of transparency about the creative process where you work is a really nice thing. I mean, there are definitely moments where, like, you say, you know what? I want it to be blue, so just make it blue. And usually with a designer who's working for you, if the designer at that point doesn't say, okay, if they sort of don't pitch in, then it's usually a sign that it's time for that designer to go and start their own practice, which is fine. But there is a moment where, as the creative director, as the head, you do have to take responsibility, and you do have to understand how you're shaping any idea. But the idea of being open to where those ideas come from. I mean, and I've worked with a ton of writers who are just as smart visually as they are with language, and I've learned from the beginning that there are lots of people who are just move seamlessly. It's sort of like moving seamlessly between different kinds of media. It's just about thinking about the idea, and the idea can come from anywhere.
Someone else.
Hi, my name is Alex Holt Cohan. I'm a graphic designer, and I was just wondering, because I come up against this problem all the time, how do you make people value the idea when they don't?
You can't. I don't think. I don't know. Ugh, that's a good question. If someone... I don't know if you can. If someone is not going to be open to an idea, I mean, it's almost a little hard for me to fathom that, because there's got to be some aspect of an idea that someone is interested in, that someone is looking for, that somehow touches their audience or themselves. You kind of have to find a way to understand what that person, what your client thinks is the idea. I mean, and then of course there are some times where, you know, maybe it's just not the best fit. Maybe those people who you can't coax the idea that works for them out of, maybe that's why there are so many different design studios. Maybe they're looking for something else. I don't know. It's tough.
I love the Chip Triple Z comment on the Jimmy Fallon. You know, that sort of idea of everybody being a critic, and he had the right, Chip had the right to tell you exactly how to change your design. I mean, in my experience, a lot of clients do that too. I mean, that they actually want to exert their will and decide how to design. Then you have to be strong about the idea, don't you? Or you have to be persuasive anyway. I mean, how do you keep your idea living if you've... Would you find that that
Well,
happens?
it depends. Sometimes, I mean, the other thing, I went back and I looked at a lot of the comments from that Jimmy Fallon thing, and there were so many like that, and all completely different, all arguing for a different point of view and making something else a different color. And I think that part of your job as a designer is listening to your client in the first place, and then not necessarily doing exactly what they want, but finding a way to get to the solution that they want that best serves them. And again, sometimes you can't get there. But for instance, we always like to say, don't tell me you want it to be yellow. Tell me you want it to be sunnier or something. Say what you want it to feel like as opposed to what you want it specifically to do. And we will find a way to get there for you, and it might not be in the way that you expect. And I mean, I think that I've been relatively fortunate in terms of having clients who are sort of willing and able to think that way and do it that way, and which also is to say, like, a client who knows what they want, who knows who they are, is a good client. But if they come to you and they already know that they want it to be red and square and Helvetica, then they don't need a designer. They don't need someone to help them think of an idea. They need someone to execute for them.
But then there is that question of democratization, isn't there? I mean, remember the 80s when desktop revolution in typography was happening, and there was a long period where what had been written by hand on a piece of lined paper became loaded with every typeface you could imagine. And then there was after a period of time, it seemed that people were getting enough appreciation of what the difference between good and bad, between expert and not expert, that at least they did something relatively plain. And so the overall standard of stuff that was on notice boards everywhere went up. And I can't help feeling that the same thing's happening already with video, because that's already has been democratized. And then you look at web, similar things are happening now. So do you feel that will increase the perceived value of design, or do you think that has a deleterious effect? She's thinking.
I am thinking. I think the value of design is going to stay. I think the value of design is going to, I don't know if it's going to increase, but I think it's going to stay. I don't think that giving everyone the ability to edit something or use a different typeface or all of that is going to change that. And I think that a lot of people were afraid that it would, but I actually think it's kind of great. Lots of people can do lots of things, and sometimes it's wonderful and sometimes it's awful. And the truth of the matter is, it's the same thing with the professionals. Sometimes it's wonderful and sometimes it's awful, even if you've got a degree in design. And I think that there are times when the work of a highly skilled professional is exactly what it takes, and we can make something better. And sometimes that, for lack of a better word, since we're still talking about Tibor, the vernacular of what someone does is also great. And that language has changed. Like, what is, like you said, like what someone can do, what friends of mine's 8-year-olds do with video now is ridiculously professional. And sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's great beyond like, oh, that your 8-year-old made that, that's lovely. Sometimes it's really great and smart and interesting, and we can learn from that.
Is anybody else? Yes.
Yes. My name is Jody, and I work with design and basically believe we all do since we interact with it. Can you comment on the nature, the change in nature of the physical materials, the wax of certain supplies, smooth, shiny, the way they smell, oil, the dust from a pastel? As a designer,
grease paint.
Yeah, I feel like the texture and where you keep them, how you house them, how you look at them, that physical nature has changed as the technology has changed and made all kinds of things available, but also shifted how they felt in your hand and how you use them. And what do you think about that? And do you crave things that you have a special little rubber band around some pencils you loved or miss certain things?
I have a rubber cement thinner canister that I take with me to for every job that I've had since college because I love it. But I love stuff like that. I love packaging. I love ephemera. I love printed pieces of paper. I love pencils, and I love all of that stuff. And I do feel like sometimes, like the worst thing in the world is sometimes you can be designing a book or a poster and you spend so much time focused on what it is on the screen that you forget to look at the real thing, the object, to print it out, to hold it in your hand, to see how it feels, to see where the edges trim. And on those occasions that has happened, I've had to go back and rethink it because I didn't think about the object. And so I still think that stuff is just as important. I think that there is probably a shifting idea of keeping that stuff around. I think that stuff is going away, and some of it is good. I mean, Scott, I believe, still has the old waxer from M & Company. Around, and when you say that to someone, you say a triangle or a T-square to someone today, they don't know what you're talking about. And you know, I sometimes mourn the fact that there aren't typesetters anymore, and that, like, I know the weight of an X-Acto blade, an X-Acto knife in my hand. I know I can use that without even thinking about it. And I think there's a little bit of that that's gone, but I also think it depends where you are. Like at Pentagram, there's a lot of actual making of actual things all the time. There's balsa wood for making little packages are being made, things are being cut out, things are being cropped, and it's nice. It feels really, and there's a lot of it going on because there's a lot of work going on, and it feels alive in a way that's not just digital. So I think it's up to every individual designer to keep that kind of tangible stuff alive. But on the other hand, there's something really nice about being able to fix something in the middle of the night when you're freaking out about what it looks like. So
let's wish Emily luck as she takes her rubber cement canister to her birthday at Pentagram. Thank you.